It's my honor to greet Ms. Smita Sadasivan, the member of the Differently Abled Rights Alliance, Tamil Nadu. She works as the accessibility consultant with the Election Commission of India to enhance accessible electoral process for all such voters. She also takes copious initiatives to advocate, support, and promote the rights of the differently abled, including conducting training and counseling sessions concerning gender violence confronted by the same. She is also the co-founder of Tejas, a self-advocacy group for women, and a lot more about her. We are glad to have you here, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Sneha. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. I thank Unnati, Sandeep, and the team to give me this opportunity. So I would like to start with my story. I have multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a neurological condition which actually creates deficits in the entire system, like starting with the limbs, both limbs, and bowel bladder control, or vision, or any other sensory interventions. So initially, I was studying in college when I got this, and I was a very active student in my college. I was doing karate. I was participating in all extracurricular activities of the college. I was part of the union, college union. So the attitude that I carried at that time was like, I am very healthy and I never thought about any disability or disease. And I had a sympathetic attitude towards my classmates with disabilities. Like none of my classmates were persons with disabilities, whereas one of my junior, she became a very good friend of mine from my college days. So I used to help her. And but then, yes, so since she's a friend, and we didn't have the attitude of disability, she's a person with disability, like that, but we exchange any normal conversation, and so we were just friends. And so this was my college life, and I was the college topper during my college days. And um, all teachers loved me. And so suddenly, within about over a span of a month, I um, got started getting tiredness. And I did not recognize that it is tiredness. I wanted to feel, I wanted to just go and sleep. And even in my college bench, I will just lay down and sleep. As soon as I come home, I will sleep. And my parents were thinking that I am becoming lazy and I am not really very active. And so they started um, accusing me, and they tried to push me into some activities. They started giving me more household chores to perform. But then I was finding it difficult to do those tasks. I will just do it quickly and then again come and lay down. So this is how I was doing. I didn't know why I was doing that, and even my parents didn't know why I was doing that. But they thought that this is not right. What I'm doing is not right. Whereas they thought like I am only doing it. Whereas I didn't. I could not help myself. I was just feeling sleepy. I was feeling tired. I didn't even know, whether that it is tiredness. I was like I was. It was. I know only that it is sleepy, and I will just go and sleep. So a month passed away, and then what happened? I started getting pain in my neck and ribs. So only then we thought that I had some issue. But even at that point of time, we could not relate my sleepy attitude, my sleepiness, and this pain. And I was taken to a nearby hospital, and doctor said no problem at all. Then they gave some, supportive medicines, whereas it did not help me. Then slowly one day, I was finding difficult to brush my teeth and then button my shirt. And also slowly my footsteps were actually, dragging, and it is not going in the intended direction in which it should go. So if I'm trying to keep my foot straight, it will go to the left or right. So it will be like that. And slowly I started walking like a person who is drunk. Then at that point of time, we came to know that, okay, this is a very serious issue, and we went to the Kilpauk Hospital. Then I got admitted there. But even again, that particular department doctors never knew what I had. And only when my bowel bladder failed and I was not able to urinate at all, then they got to know that, okay, this can be some neurological problem. And they called the neurologist to the ward. And then I was catheterized, and neurologist said, yes, this is kind of a demyelinating disease of the central nervous system. And they took me to the neurology department. Again, because it was about a week's time by then, a week more. So what happened? I was even more deteriorating. I was getting bit unconscious on and off. And when doctor pricked me with a pin, I didn't have any sensation. And literally all the movements went away, and I was not able to move my hands, move my fingers, move my legs or toes or anything. So at that time, then I was given steroid injections, and then slowly I started moving my limbs. Then about 6 months passed away. I was also out of catheterization, and I was given training to urinate on my own and all that. And at that point of time, again, I was feeling too much tired. So, at that point only we came to know that the tiredness itself or the fatigue itself is a symptom, can be a symptom of an illness. And right now the attitude is, well-being is absence of disease. Actually, it is not so. Well-being or the health is a comprehensive or a holistic collective of emotional, physical, and mental well-being, and also social. Social plays a very important role, because when you are alone, when you are depressed, or when you are focusing too much into one thing and you are not engaging in other activities, engaging outside with people, then that automatically gets you down in your mental stability and your process of thinking. Everything gets affected. So that is why it is very important to be connected. That is why we have so many support groups like Unnati and other groups, where we all get to meet. And because of COVID, all those things came to a standstill. Yes, now we have the virtual platform through which at least we are trying to meet and talk. So like it was going like that. And when I was becoming little better, I had a second relapse, which is in my left leg, and again the leg was not moving. And so again we went to the neurologist again gave the steroid injection. And then the doctors were looking at why did I get it again. And then doctor came up with the finding that I have multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a kind of demyelination, or degenerative demyelination. It may affect at any point of time, and I may get a relapse at any point of time. And the cause is unknown. A lot of research is happening in the world. So only lifestyle changes can help, and we have to live with the disease. So that was a really big blow for me and my family, especially. And at that point of time, I also had cruciating pain. Too much of spasm was there, and along with the spasm, this came like a cramp. What to say? like a seizure. So when seizures, so when seizures come and go, how people will experience it is they will get into a complete fatigue, and they will not be able to move, and some parts of the cells in the brain will also die. Mine was not actually a seizure. Mine was a spastic neurotic cramp, but then doctors could not identify what it was. And about 2 years went like that, amidst the relapses. So I would get a periodic relapses, and then remit and then relapse. So this was my lifestyle at that point of time, and I have discontinued completely from college. Then, in addition to my relapses and my inability, I was having debilitating pain, which was literally taking a toll on me. My parents were also too worried, and nobody knew what to do. And finally, after 2 years, when I got admitted, we went to different hospitals. None of the doctors could actually clarify it, rectify it. Then in GH, um, in one of the neurologist doctors, chief doctors, he came and examined, and he said he too didn't confirm it as seizure, but then he said we can just try seizure medication. And along with the baclofen, I was also provided seizure medication, and over a period of 6 months, it came down step by step, and I was out of pain after 6 months. So then I also had a relapse in the eyes. I lost my vision. It was about 2 months. I was completely blind and totally blurred. Everything will see white. And then later, what happened? Again, the steroid injections and treatment. Then again, I slowly got back my vision. So now we know that the a relapse will happen anytime, and we have to be ready for it. So we have to accept it. No other go. And after every relapse, I had to start from scratch. So that was an issue which was also bothering me, but then no other go. So we had to accept it, and my parents were looking at different other support systems. And so with this reality, or with this experience, what I came to know is anything can happen to anyone in life. It is not like people with disabilities have a certain suffering or whatever. People without disabilities can also encounter disability or any other issue in life, and disability is just one a part of life. And definitely everyone in their life will undergo disability, if not sooner, later. Like I saw the 92-year-old person last week, and he was he was having a lot of support requirements like persons with disabilities because of the age. So nobody can say that, like I was thinking in my college days, I am healthy, and nothing will bother me or whatever. So anybody can have a health issue at any point of time. Anybody can encounter a disability at any point of time, or anybody can encounter any big issue, any big blow in their life. So this is life, and we have to accept it. That is reality. That is something that I learned, my first learning in my life. So why I'm saying my story to you is not to tell you that I have undergone all these things. I may be yet to undergo the worst part of my life. We don't know, but the learning. I just want to share the learning that anything can happen to anyone, and if something happens to us, just accept it. Know that it is all going. Something is going to everyone, and we are not alone. So the second thing is about support systems. Like my parents were looking for support systems. We found Multiple Sclerosis Society of India. Rather, they found me when a news item came in the newspaper saying that I have to undergo such and such treatment and I need financial support. MSSI saw that, and they came to approach us, and they asked us to become member of Multiple Sclerosis Society. They gave a complete understanding about multiple sclerosis and what are the lifestyle changes that we have to have. And despite multiple sclerosis, how can we be happy? How can we be together? And how can we also contribute? So these kind of discussions and other discussions on how to better the condition or better our lifestyle and to be happy. So these kind of discussions happened at Multiple Sclerosis Society. It is a support system, support society. And we also came to know about Vidyasagar through my professor. So back in college, my professors were encouraging me to continue my studies, and I tried to continue my studies. I tried to go to college and sit just for an hour. They said, you come sit for an hour and go. We will give you whole day's attendance. I tried that for a couple of weeks, but then I was too tired. I was like, it was literally an impossibility for me. I just told my parents, I am not doing this, and I can't do it. Then they said, okay, they left my choice. And I was just in four walls because I could not move out. I will get tired even if I stand and walk or whatever. Even if I sit for some time, I get tired. Even now, if I sit for a bit long time, I get too tired, yeah, without doing anything. So fatigue is a major symptom for people with multiple sclerosis. So it was like that. Then I don't know how my teachers manage my attendance. They said, you just come and write your examination. We will clear your papers. And they arrange all the scribes, and they just asked me to read from home. And I could not sit and read. My mom used to sit and read my lessons, and I would just lay down and listen. So this is how I studied my 1 year, 2 semesters subjects, and I went and wrote it one by one. I didn't have the energy to, to write the examinations continuously. Like if I go today and tomorrow's examination, I won't write, though I would have paid the fees. And day after tomorrow, I will attend. And then again, the next day, I won't attend. So the final day, 5th day, I will attend. So this is how we have planned. And slowly, over the next 2 years, I cleared all the papers. And once I cleared all my papers, then my teacher said, now you have to go, you have to look at for higher studies. And also, one of my professors, Mrs. Kanti, she is a person with visual impairment. She's a blind professor. Her daughter is studying in Vidyasagar. Vidyasagar is an organization for persons with disabilities. So she said, you go and meet the director of Vidyasagar and try to get some job there. I was thinking like, oh my God, what is this ma'am saying? I can't do any job. How can she think that I will be able to do any job? My parents were also like, they were obliging to my professor, and they said, okay, we will try take her to the Vidyasagar director. And I was like, I didn't even have the energy to say no or yes or whatever. I would be just sitting as an idle piece, like just looking at whatever is happening. I didn't even have the energy to grasp whatever is happening around me. I would be just a witness, or not even a witness, just a subject. And then I went to Vidyasagar, and I liked this place, but then it didn't register me that this is a nice place, or I can work here or whatever. Then the director asked me like, we love to have you here, and what would be your requirements during work? What will you require? Then I was thinking, and I said, I can't even sit for some time, so I will have to lay down mostly. Then she said, okay, we will give you a bed to take your time. And whenever you're feeling comfortable, you just come, and we can train you a little bit, and you can start working. And she posted me. It was this is Poonam Natarajan, our founder of Vidyasagar. She posted me at the advocacy department, where there were a group of youngsters, all persons with disabilities, advocating very energetically and enthusiastically and forcefully for the rights of persons with disabilities. But at that point of time, I did not recognize myself as a person with disability. So only when my director gave me a book, and she asked me to read it. And she said, you take your time, you can just go home, take the book and finish it, and then only come to work. So that particular point of time, my only work was to just read that book. And then it was a good book. It's a very famous book. I don't remember the name now. um, Disability, diversity, and celebration, right? Or hope, I don't know. The book really was an eye opener for me, and it was talking about the perspectives of people with disabilities, and what intensively is a disability, like any aspect, like the UNCRPD definition, any aspect that hinders you from uh, you know performing your highest potential. So that is disability. And what is that hindrance? It is the barrier which is there in the environment or technology or whatever. So the attitude shifted from person to the barriers. So the issue is not the person or the person with disability, but the issue is the barriers which he or she is facing. So that concept I really liked. And after that, I was sent to training, different training programs, and on advocacy. And we had lawyers coming in, and we were talking about the Persons with Disabilities Act 1995 at that time. Then slowly we started giving training for people with disabilities in the rural areas, or women with disabilities, about the rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. And we also started a support net, a legal support cell, where people with disabilities can take free legal aid for their issues. And every issue is a discrimination right now, even right now. So everything we try to solve legally, or we also gave them legal counseling. So these kind of activities I was engaged in, and I started liking it. I could initially I was associating myself with the issues, with the work that I was doing. Then your thought about your person actually vanishes when you start working, and when you are focusing and working passionately on anything. So that's what has happened, and it was a complete shift from me, why all the suffering for me, to tackling the suffering of others, or to getting a remedy of people with disabilities from their discrimination. So this is a great shift that I experienced. And at that time, the second point, or the second thing that I came to know, or the second knowledge, is about support systems. Like I told you, my parents were in search of support systems, and the brilliant support system that I got is Multiple Sclerosis Society and Vidyasagar. And through these support systems, support networks, what do we get? The knowledge. That is the first and foremost thing, which really um, uh, gives you a great shift in attitude, and that is the foremost thing for life, for anybody's life. So with support system, we have to tap support system. And if we don't get a support system, what should we do? I was also fascinated by Mrs. Poonam Natarajan's example. She had a child with disability, and um, in her child was denied education in any school, in all the schools, and she went school after school because the child had very profound disability. Then she decided, okay, I will start a school for my child. And she started a school, special school, Vidyasagar, for just 3 children, including her son. So so there should be the courage, the motivation to become a support system. And now see, so many of us and so many people, even more, are getting benefited out of these support systems. So one is to tap the support system available in the net, in the society. And this second one, the ultimate thing is, after tapping and after utilizing the support systems, we ourselves should become a support system for the entire society. So in, there are a lot of domains and lot of work is still pending. So we can choose the area of work where we want to, and we can just start contributing. And I will tell you, by contributing, it just doesn't help others, but it helps you immensely. So let us be a support for each other. And that is how we can celebrate diversity. That is how we can be in harmony. And, nothing can replace a support, because in life, human being need support. And that is why human beings are living together as a group from age old times. And even animals or any living creatures are living together because they all need support. So support is an essential thing in life, which we have to consciously create, and we have to be supporting each other. Only then we can live the life in harmony. Otherwise, what is the point? So that way, I also started advocating for the rights of persons with disabilities, and different things I attempted. Part of disability legislation unit, I told the group of youngsters with whom I got recruited, and also separately as an individual. And we all together came up with a collective called forum called Disability Rights Alliance Tamil Nadu, and we started working on policy. Then we figured out the loopholes or the issues in the Disability Act, the Persons with Disabilities Act 1995, and we all advocated for coming up with a new law for persons with disabilities. And the government also agreed, and we had to take on protests, we had to take on media advocacy, we actually did different campaigns, and finally it came up. And ultimately, even while the framing of the new law, there were a lot of issues, there were a lot of disagreements. And when we saw that the main ingredients or the significant points were missing or were diluted in the new law, draft of the new law, we pushed it to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. And the Parliamentary Standing Committee came to Chennai, and they listened to our views. And finally, they gave a report to the law committee or the law ministry, saying that these things need to be added. And finally, after a kind of negotiation, the law was passed in 2016. So apart from the policy advocacy or the free legal aid for persons with disabilities, we were also looking at different accessibility projects, not really projects, initiatives. And we were tapping the government for making their office accessible first for persons with disabilities, and then their work or other public buildings to be made accessible. And we were working with the Corporation of Chennai. They were actually making the payments at that time, and we asked them to make the payments accessible for all persons with disabilities. Like it has to be accessible for people with visual impairment, people with locomotor disabilities, wheelchair users or crutch users, whoever it is. So it is also a long ongoing work. And it was going on like this. And one day our department used to choose what we should do on every World Disability Day. And 5 years back, when we were discussing about the UN's theme to be worked out as World Disability Day activity, then our director said, this time you won't decide it. You just go to the class, ask the children, ask the kids what they want to do on World Disability Day. We went class after class, and then kids said music, kids said cinema, and many children said beach. So the majority was beach. And then, okay, this World Disability Day, we will take everyone to the beach. That was the conclusion. And we thought, like, being an NGO, we are doing a lot of things, a lot of services, which the government has to be doing. So why should we be doing that? And accessibility is a demand, is a mandate of the government. So we kept on pushing the Greater Chennai Corporation that they should ensure that beach is accessible. We invited the corporation DC, Deputy Commissioner, to our school and made him to interact with all our children. And the children said so many brilliant things like, what all should be there in the beach, so that safety is ensured, so that accessibility is ensured. So all those things were made into a list, and we submitted it to the deputy commissioner also. And the deputy commissioner was really thrilled after interacting with all the children. And then he said, this World Disability Day, you all will go to beach. I will ensure that. Then that year, he made a path till the waters from on the sand, and all our children were taken. Then we told the DC, this is not enough. This is just one day you are making it accessible. We want it to be permanent, because accessibility is a mandate to everyone, to the government, and a public place should be accessible to anyone. When a person without disability is able to access a beach, why anytime, whenever he or she wants it, why not a person with disability use it? Then also, if you fix World Disability Day as access to beach day, then if a child gets sick, or gets seizures, or if the parents go out of town, or whatever it is, then the child misses the opportunity for one more year, right? So that was also raised, and then DC said, okay, I will make a permanent payment to the waters, and you give me the design, you give me the eco-friendly structures and whatever, give me a proposal, and also introduce a consultant, architect, we will do it. And so for the past 4 years, 4.5 years, the work has been going on. We in between, there was an issue of eco-friendliness, and the forest department did not give a go ahead. Then we said our designs are specifically eco-friendly, and we are not using any concrete structures, and we gave all the models to the forest department. And then in the forest ministry in Delhi, they gave a sanction. And even at that point of time, on the next World Disability Day, the Jallikattu protest was there. And at that point of time, the government, the police had a strict ban that groups of people should not go to the beach. And on World Disability Day, we have to go to the beach. So they said no. And I went in person, and I gave a representation. Then they sent a show cause notice to me saying that it cannot be done, and give us a reason, specific reasons why you want to be done, and why it cannot be done. These questions were also asked me, and I went in person. I presented my views in person before the commissioner, and all the replies to the show cause notice. And then finally, the assistant commissioner said no. Anyways, we cannot allow a group of people. Then I again went to meet the commissioner, and finally he heard my arguments, heard my all the legal points. Then he said, okay, we will give it to you. And then they gave a notification saying that people with disabilities will be allowed on World Disability Day to the beach. And so that was a huge success for us at that point of time. And then this permanent accessibility work was started. It was supposed to get done by 2020 December, but due to COVID, everything came to a standstill. And I hope at least with the next year's World Disability Day, it should be there, and all of us can go to beach and enjoy the waters. And in the meantime, what we did, we also figured out other accessibility aspects to access the beach, which was beach wheelchairs. So we approached the Chennai Corporation that these beach wheelchairs can navigate the sand. If you make a payment, we can use only that particular way. But if you provide a beach wheelchair, it can navigate the entire sand area and also on the waters. Then commissioner agreed to that, and he brought 4 beach wheelchairs 2 years back, and it is there in Marina Beach. Anybody can use it, but right now, nobody knows that such beach wheelchairs are available, and people with disabilities can use it. So now what we are working on is to have a number, a phone number displayed across the beach, saying that this beach wheelchair will be available in this particular number. You can call and you can take the services. And similarly, we also started working on parks, and Disability Rights Alliance members worked on making a park accessible, which is at Santo. It's a really brilliant park. Hope some of you would have gone and seen it. It has accessible provisions for all kind of disabilities. Like if it is a child with disability, child with wheelchair user, she can also enjoy something. Or if a child with visual impairment, she can also enjoy something. And if it is a child with autism, he or she can also enjoy something. So all these components put together, the park had a brilliant idea, and it was also managed by community volunteers. That is what I am looking at again as a community support system. So what we should eventually build up is community support system. The government can introduce certain schemes or certain programs, whereas how can we make it implement in the community and make it sustain in the community? Only through community support systems where people from the community take ownership and volunteer. So that park is a good example. And right now we are also building a accessible park in Koturpuram. It is yet to be inaugurated. We have all the accessible facilities in that park. And then the other thing is about elections. So yeah, even for elections, we have been working for many years, whereas the chief electoral officer will not even listen to us, or he will just listen to us, but then he won't do anything. No polling booth had a proper ramp, or if they had ramp, it was all very steep ramp, and only very few booths had those steep ramps. And finally, we were out of a way. And at that point of time, in 2015, I had an opportunity to attend this FEMBOSA, Forum for Election Management Bodies of South Asia. So this FEMBOSA conference was happening in Sri Lanka. I had an opportunity to attend it. How I got the opportunity is in 2012, I went to US to the Women's Institute of Leadership and Disability Exchange Program. And there I got the contact of IFES, and IFES, when they organized this conference, they approached me and invited me. And to my surprise, I saw the Election Commissioner of India there. And he was this Forum for Election Management Bodies of South Asia. It has a platform where all the SAARC countries election commissioners come together. And we were all making a set of guidelines or set of mandates that these election commissioners will agree and sign. So we made a 9-point agenda, and that 9-point agenda was signed by all these SAARC election commissioners, and one of the commissioners was our commissioner, Mr. O.P. Rawat at that time. And then I contacted him continuously, and I also took the 9-point agenda to our chief electoral officer and said this has to be done. It is a mandate. And simultaneously, I was also working with the Election Commission of India through contacting Mr. Rawat, and he gave me a positive reply saying that yes, we are serious about including persons with disabilities, and we will be doing it. And so when we were collaborating, and initially what happened in Tamil Nadu when we were working on it is like we had to pitch in a lot, and lot was only our effort. It was not government effort, the election department's effort, but our effort. We did access audit of many polling booths. We did awareness programs. We did awareness codes in accessible formats. So different things about accessibility we only did for the CEO's office. And then we showed it as a good model to the Election Commission of India. The Election Commission of India started promoting this model as set of guidelines. So now we have a very good set of guidelines from Election Commission of India for all the states and union territories on how a polling booth should be accessible, and different accessible facilities. We should have wheelchairs. We should have ramps. Ramp meaning effective and accessible ramp as per the standards, and volunteers. to help people with voters with disabilities, Braille candidate sheet, and there is Braille marking, the numbers in the EVM, electronic voting machine, and accessible posters will be set on the polling booths walls. Now we have the sign language interpreter facility also from the control room. People with hearing impairment can call, do a video calling in sign and get their doubts clarified. And Election Commission of India have also come up with a app, a PWD app, which gives all the facilities and helps us to through different electoral process. If we want to enumerate ourselves as a voter with disability, how to apply with Form 6, or how to make an address change or whatever, how to apply for a wheelchair, ask for a wheelchair when I am going to a polling station, or to ask for a transport facility. Free transport facility is available for people with disabilities during elections. So all these facilities have been notified, and also different platforms are set by the Election Commission where all these facilities are promoted again. Eventually, when I was working with the Election Commission on all these things, then one of our demands were to assign an accessibility consultant for the commission. And then when we were working like this, and every time I go and meet the commission, then they said, why can't you be our consultant? And that is how I got engaged as accessibility consultant for Election Commission of India. Like this, if we start working on what we want and what we like to do, then definitely success is not very far away. Whereas there are failures also. We will face definitely failures. Like I was very passionately following up the Aadhaar accessibility to make the entire Aadhaar process accessible for persons with disabilities. One complete year I worked on it, but then I could not actually move the thoughts or any provision in the UDAI, Central Government of India, which is authority for Aadhaar provisions. And similarly, I tried to work on making the bank system accessible, but even that is a very hard area where, yes, still we are working, our friends are also working on it to make the banking facilities accessible to, even starting from the ATMs to the banks to all the banking processes. The checks had to be made accessible, or the check signing, all these things. So we are moving very slowly, but it is very slow. Similarly, different things which we want to change, we can start step by step. We will not achieve it on a day. Say, for example, even with the 9-point agenda, I started in 2015, and there are 2 or 3 points which are yet to be done in the 9-point agenda, and but the other points we got sorted out. So it will go slowly, because it also needs an attitude shift with the government. We also need proactive government officials to work with us, to understand what we are saying, to understand the concept of disability. And when we talk about understanding the concept of disability, many people with disabilities ourselves don't understand the concept. For example, we think that people with disabilities are dependent and people without disabilities are independent. Whereas if you look at, make a list of all the activities that a person does from morning to night, so it will be almost the same list. Whereas for everything, the person, for many things, person with disability will require support. And similarly, person without disability also may require support. Like the same person will not be making his own food, the same person will not be washing his own clothes, or weaving his own clothes, or making his own banking process or whatever. So everybody requires support. Whereas persons with disabilities require a bit extra support. That is, the degree of support varies. But the attitude is like, it is like one segment is independent and one segment is dependent, which is actually not the reality. So we have to get that concept. And with regard to support systems also, there is a thought that people with disabilities require a lot of support systems. Don't people without disabilities require support systems? For example, what about our education system? What about our transport system, banking system, or a post office, police station? All these things are support systems created by the community. Why? Because we need the support systems in the community. So similarly, if persons with disabilities require some specific support systems which have to be created. So this need was not recognized earlier, so the support system were not here. Now we recognize that need and we have to create those support systems. That's it. It is just as simple as that. But the attitude, the stigma of the society is like, no, people without disabilities don't require support system, and people with disabilities require a lot of support systems, which we have to break. Say, for example, even a simple thing like a stairs. For example, a mountain. A person sees a mountain and he thinks about a way and he creates a step. Why should he create a step? So that he can access the mountain. Why can't he just fly to the mountain, to the top of the mountain? If he thinks that he is so normal and he doesn't need a support system. Or accessibility and support system are required for everyone. When a person without disability need an accessibility through stairs, a person with disability who's using a wheelchair require a ramp. It's as simple as that. So the concept need to change. The concept need to be drilled into everyone. And that is why UNCRPD, United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, is talking about celebrating diversity. The world is full of differences. And only when we accept the differences and only when we start working on the differences and uniting all the differences and live in harmony, that is when we can celebrate diversity. That is when the real celebration happens. Otherwise no point in life, right? And you cannot think that only one particular set of group of people should be living in a particular area or whatever. This entire world is full of differences, like no two leaves are alike, no two trees are alike, no two creatures are alike, and no two human beings are alike. So diversity is there everywhere, and disability is one of the diversity. We have to accept it and we have to promote it. Why should we be ashamed? We should come out and say, more the people with disabilities come out, walk on the road, go to the markets, and that is when people come to know, okay, there are people like us and they need some support and we have to provide that support. It is their responsibility to provide that support. UNCRPD also talks about the support system required by a person is a right. So when education becomes a requirement, then education became a right. When health was a requirement, health became a right. Right now, whatever support system we persons with disabilities or any other marginalized community requires, when that becomes a need and it becomes a support system, it becomes a right. So that is how we have to look at these aspects, and we have to push the government in this way. We need not be ashamed. We need not go with a begging bowl. It is their responsibility. It is the state's mandate to make things accessible for us, to include all in all aspects of life, so that we can attain our highest potential. And that is how we have to deal with the community, deal with the government. And if yes, many people are not aware of these concepts, we have to enlighten them about these concepts. And how do we enlighten them? By living it ourselves, right? So that is the way, and more and more support systems we create, and let us be together, let us support each other, and there is no bar. So in Chennai, many people with disabilities can access the beach, Marina Beach. We can access the beach wheelchairs through beach wheelchairs, and the accessible parks are there, and other places, other parks are also kind of accessible, so we can use that. And there are some other amenities, the public places which people with disabilities can use. It is accessible, so we should be using all these amenities. Otherwise, even the amenities, the accessible facilities will just will fade away, and it will not be maintained. So to ensure the government to maintain all these facilities, we have to use them. And let us be together, let us live our life in the fullest, and also contribute in whatever way possible, and achieve our passion, like go behind our passion, and you won't feel that you are working hard or whatever. It will be your dream, and you are just going, taking the path to your dream. And so that is how I see my work in the disability sector. And I wish Unnati all the very best towards achieving every goal of every member of Unnati. And if you thank you very much for this opportunity. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So last time I went to vote, the problem was that when go to the voting booth, right, where the EVM is, it's kept at one corner. So it's very difficult for the wheelchair to go inside that booth and press the button. So I actually had to tell my father to go and press that button, press that party button. Yeah.
Actually, secret ballot is another right, and for which all these accessible facilities are ensured. So what we can do is, if something happens like that, immediately you can post it in your Facebook, and also contact the nodal officer, local nodal officer. Either the local BLO, booth level officer, will be there. But it is important to collect all these phone numbers prior to voting. And it is also best if we go and do a kind of check the booth previously before the elections, so that we know what amenities are there and how to access that. And in case we need help, we can tell the volunteers, see, this wheelchair is in that corner, bring it here. So something like this, we can, it is better to have a knowledge about your own polling booth. And it is very, very important to have the local contacts of the officials who will be working on the booth, this thing. So that helps, and you can always post it to me, and I will also post it to the respective officer and get it done.
Sure, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other questions?
I've posted a question in the chat. Can you please read it out?
Yes, I will read it out. There's a question, ma'am. What advice would you give the communities? How do they get involved? Is there any volunteers? Where do they contact?
Okay, so there is an attitude to look out for volunteers, and there usually the parents, basically they want volunteers to come and help their own children, children with disabilities, whereas they don't think that they can themselves go as volunteer and help other children. So initially, when we don't get volunteers from outside, or when we don't get support from outside, we have to become that support within ourselves, and look out for volunteers. Yes, sensitize them and make them get along with our children with or adults with disabilities. And it is very important that parents should let go of their children with disability, and should find out the external support system. Because what happens, for many years, the parent will be helping their adult with disability, and for 40 years, 50 years, and until a day comes when the parent cannot do anything more, or the parent will be no more. So in that particular situation, this person with disability, who's completely dependent on the parent for all his activities, he will enter into a double shock. The first shock is his parent is no more, which is a shock that happens to everyone at some point of time. Whereas the second shock is to custom to, or to adapt to us an external support system from that day onwards suddenly. So all this years of life, It was my parent who was actually supporting me in all my activities, and suddenly I have to get used to a brand new person is a big shock for a person with disability, and that to a person with severe disability who completely needs the support. So we can avoid the second shock. We cannot avoid the first shock. So the second shock can be avoided by looking at or engaging external support mechanism from outside. How can we do it? We have to think. There are many ways, even in rural areas. They um, there are people living single widow, single women, or children, children's parent uh, who will not be able to afford a tuition fee, something like that. So we can engage them. Like, I will teach a child on math or English, and you can come and help me for what this particular point of time. So know your requirement, and also based on your requirement, just look at the or decide on the accessibility. Have the clarity on your own accessibility that you need, your own reasonable accommodation that you need, because it varies from person to person. So when we have the clarity of what we require, then we can ask for it, we can look out for that particular support and engage with the community so that they can help us. If not, in everything, like the guardian system, for example, it is giving the burden of the entire uh, life time support to one person who is the guardian, whereas the guardian doesn't have any expertise. So what we are saying, the guardian need not be burdened of my entire lifetime's activity, and he also don't have an expertise. For example, people without disabilities take support for legal requirement or financial assistance or whatever. So they don't take a guardian, they don't go for a guardian, they only go to the financial expert or the legal expert or whoever. So in that way, people with disabilities also have different requirements in their life, and one guardian cannot fulfill all these requirements. So we need experts, we need to go to experts, number one. And number two, we cannot burden one person for all our requirements. So it is better to identify support systems, small support systems, and engage with the community. And it is in our hands, like how Unnati or our support groups engage people with our specific support requirements, and we can definitely succeed. Somebody had a question in chat.
Yeah.
Hello.
What advice?
Yes.
Yeah. Go on.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello, madam.
Hello.
Hello.
Are you able to hear me?
Hello, madam. Namaste.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello. Namaste, madam.
Namaste. Please go ahead.
Madam, this is Mehboob from Karnataka. Madam, I have one question. In our Karnataka, in our disabled commissioner, he is not selected from any other exams, but he is selected from working any other NGOs like differently abled officers. In this basis, they are selecting our commissioners. But in this case, what is happening in our Karnataka? One person working in a NGO. This is working. This NGO's goal is only working from only for locomotor disability. Like example, and that person will come. He will become a commissioner. Then he will go to thinking only for locomotor disability problems. He's not able to identify other disabilities like hearing impaired and leprosy, etc. So they are asking 15 years experience to apply commissioner post. Then how that person can give justice to our community, because he's working only for one different type of disability. So that's our question. In how is in your state to select a commissioner? The process
Yeah,
of
actually, you have a valid point, for which we have the state advisory board, which should be tackling this issue. And it is a very important issue that you raise. And this, you have to write to the commissioner's office, to the commissioner's court itself, you can file a petition. And apart from that, you have to bring this issue to the at the advisory board. Number one. And number two, whatever said and done, it is better to have a commissioner from our own domain, from the NGO sector, rather than a commissioner who's an IAS officer. In Chennai, we have, in Tamil Nadu, we have the IAS officer as a disability commissioner. That is how it is in many states. And very, very few states have the commissioner from the NGO. For example, Nagaland. Nagaland, we have Dayathon Nakro, who is a person with disability and a great activist for
Hello, madam. Your voice is breaking. I can't hear your voice, madam.
I think we are having some internet issues.
Madam, I have another one question. If you permit me, I can ask.
Let's wait for her to come back. I think she's
Yes,
having some
basically.
internet issues.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Am I audible? Sorry, I got a
Yes.
call.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Like that, we can actually sensitize the commissioner himself, and the commissioner will definitely listen. Anyway, he's not an IAS officer, no. And if it is an IAS officer, we are facing a lot of problems because of the IAS officer being a commissioner, because our commissioner has very good attitude, very nice person. He is listening to all of us. But at certain places where we want him to escalate the issue or issue an order against another IAS officer, he's not able to do that because his cadre, his his hierarchy doesn't allow him to do. So he will not be able to issue an order against another IAS officer. Whereas if it is a person from the NGO sector, from the disability domain, he will be able to issue an order on anybody fearlessly. So that is the first and foremost point. And the commissioner's role is like a watchdog. It is not implementing authority. The director of the disability department or the director of the social justice and empowerment department is the implementing authority, whereas the commissioner has to be a watchdog, monitor whether this particular director is doing all the activities or the provisions of the act effectively. And if implementation is not getting done, then the commissioner has to issue an order or to take his power of the civil court. So that is what the commissioner's main duty is, which I think Karnataka commissioner is doing fairly. Since you have this valid point, you please ensure that your commissioner knows about this, and definitely you will get an excellent result.
Okay, madam. I have another one question. Please permit me. Madam, in our Karnataka, we accepted 2016 Act to 2020 Act Karnataka. But what is here is impacting? They are accept in 2020 in August in our Karnataka Vidhan Sabha. Now what is happening? Act is came, but it is not implemented. We are in Karnataka state, it received the 2016 Act to 2020 Act, but it is not implemented. What we do next?
That's what. So, implementation is poor in other states also. And slowly we have to push. So the commissioner's court can issue directions to other departments saying that your department has to do this, your department has to do this, initiate this program. And so if you can come up with a list of activities that other departments should be doing, which they are not doing, you can actually file a petition in the commissioner's court, which will help the commissioner to issue an order accordingly. So that way only we can tackle this, which is very simple. Otherwise, we have to go to court, high court and whatever. Or we can even take media advocacy.
Madam, what is happening in our Karnataka? Our people are not able to support equally. He is doing, he will do. Why we can't do? But we are facing same problem, everyone. In our Karnataka, we have more than 1,000 or 2,000 people completed their higher education in various one of the most toppest universities. but we are looking for our job. In nowadays, in our Karnataka state is already called for assistant professor post. But in that post, we are not getting proper reservation. We are not getting proper reservation. But 2016 Act purpose, we are getting 4% in A and B group jobs, but we are not getting. How we will clarify that issue?
Are you able to hear me?
Madam, in our
Hello.
Karnataka.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
second.
now we can hear you. Yeah, can hear you.
Okay,
Uh,
sorry.
Madam, can I repeat
So
my
what,
question?
what I would suggest, yeah.
Okay, madam.
So what I would suggest in this particular situation is, many things which court cannot move or the officials cannot move, media can move. For example, we worked with the High Court of Madras in making their own campus accessible. They asked us to do an access audit. We did access audit of the entire campus. We submitted report. We kept on following them, but nothing moved. Whereas when in one of the for public interest litigations, a couple of friends came in, and one of the friend was in wheelchair, and he could not access the toilet inside the Madras High Court, and he had to pee in a bottle. Then, that evening we posted this to the media, and media took it up, and the next in the next day morning papers, and that same day night, Madras High Court's toilet was made accessible. So media has a lot of power. And similarly, I would like to give one more example where I worked with the case of a person with hearing impairment, deaf and blind, deaf blindness. He was wanted to apply for NET examination, NET examination, UGC, and UGC refused to give him a Braille question paper. He filed a public interest litigation, and the court gave an order saying that he has to be given a Braille question paper, whereas that day was Friday and the exam was supposed to be on Sunday. And when the court order came, it was 5 o'clock. And so the UGC said they can't do it because office hours are over and they did not get the order yet. And finally, we took it up to the media, and media posted it, and media posted the court order also. And eventually, next day, Saturday, they printed the Braille question paper and they sent it to Madras University on Saturday afternoon. And Sunday morning, this person got this Braille question paper for UGC NET examination. So media plays a very powerful role. You can take up with the media.
Okay, madam. Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot, madam. But my English is not good, but you can understood my problems and questions.
Yes, I understood. Yeah,
okay,
I understood.
Hello.
hello,
Hello.
sir. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Actually, madam, I am in Punjab, and I have a friend, doctor. He is a MCH neurologist, and the thing is that he is mostly working with the children with autism, and even with many neurological disability point of view. The one of the concern he shows is always that these people, like, he wanted to have some kind of a sustainability program for them and advocacy. But being a doctor, he only is related with the diagnostic only. So I am working with the human rights. So what can we do for the sustainability of a person? Because he thinks a lot of the family rejection comes because they think it's a financial burden for them. That is the thought process. So he says, if I have something I can work for them, that they can have some kind of a sustainable income in some program, so we can help them really, and advocacy also is one of the issues.
So looking at livelihood and vocational support, right, for people with autism. There are a couple of groups in Chennai which I can give contact of, and you can contact them. Apart from that, there is
Okay.
collective organization in yeah. So you know Mr. Amarjeet Singh Anand?
Hello.
Yeah, I'm able to hear you now.
No, I don't know.
Okay, okay.
Can you
I
hear
will
me?
yeah, I can hear you. I will give you his contact and also a couple of contacts who work for autism in Chennai. You can actually take their suggestions and how they are working on it. There is a brilliant initiative by one Miss Kavita Krishnamurthy in Chennai. So I will give her contact also, and just you can actually connect with them and collaborate basically. And we in Vidyasagar, we have also done one more thing, like how to create a legal deed, trust deed of whatever support requirements that we need and whatever we have set. For example, a person with disabilities requirements, if it is very severe, it can be segregated into activities in daily living, leisure, movement, communication, health, and all these aspects. So there are about 11 life domains. So with all these 11 life domains, for each domain, what is the support that is required by the child, by the person, the adult, and to what extent, and who is providing it now, and how it can be shifted to an external support system. So if we can arrive at this kind of a chart for every child or an adult with disability, we can arrive at a legal trust deed. A trust deed is nothing but a legal trust which is formed by at least minimum 3 trustees, and the trustees will oversee all the activities of the trust, and the deed will mention whatever activity should be done in the trust, whatever support requirement should be done in the trust, and it will be overseen by these trustees, and it will be legally registered, so that it has to be continued, it has to be performed even in the same way, even after the parents are no more. So it is a very brilliant thing that Advocate Roma Bhagat in Delhi and Vidyasagar and a few other organizations are doing. You can also think about arriving at such a legal trust document.
I will drop my email address here,
Yes,
madam.
yes,
So
yes,
please,
yeah.
you can send me a detail.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you.
I think we are done.
I have one question. Like
Okay.
I go to one supermarket. They don't have a ramp, so I have to be lifted up a couple of steps to go inside. So I asked the manager, and he gave me the email ID of the head office. So I wrote the email and no reply at all from them. So how can we actually take it forward? Next step, what should we do?
Write to your disability commissioner. So go to your disability commissioner's court, file a petition. You can just file it online, like send a mail, and get it done through your disability commissioner. Which state is this?
Chennai.
Okay. Okay, then it can be easily done. You can CC to me also. I will share my email ID and phone number.
Okay, sure.
I have dropped my number, madam, already.
Yeah, I'll note it down and then send it to Smita.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, she has given her email ID and number also.
Yeah.
If there are no more questions, I'll wrap the session by reading the comments of the session. Thank you for sharing your story, ma'am. I'm very encouraged and inspired by your resilience and the work you've done to change the systems around. Inspiring and enlightening presentation. Inspiring session. Thank you for sharing your story. Your story and your commitment to ensure the rights of the differently abled people is very inspiring. Um, Great initiative. So these are the comments regarding the session that I read out. Thank you, ma'am, for being here with us. Mainly the concept of confinement to confrontation uh, of the barriers and the attitude shift from self to contribution of the society is very impelling and also impels us to do more. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Thank you.